And we are live. Hey, everybody, Mitch Jackson, along with my special guest, Chris Brogan. This is the show.live. I'm excited, you guys. It's a new world out there, especially because of what's happened over the last 6 months. Everything has changed, when it comes to time, when it comes to attention, when it comes to communication. And that's why I reached out to get Chris on the show today. Chris, in your book, which I will tell everyone about in a few minutes, or a few seconds, Mary Meeker, you mentioned Mary Meeker's report from 2019, where she said in her Internet Trends report that we're spending about 6.3 hours a day online, and about half of that time is spent on our mobile devices. And we're gathering information more online than we are from our television sets. I'm wondering how those numbers look now with COVID-19 over the last 6 months, because I've noticed, right? Everything's changed. What we're doing online matters, you guys. How we build our personal and professional brands online matters. How can we connect better? How can we do better business online? How can we be better trust agents when it comes to social media, when it comes to business, when it comes to our personal relationships? Well, that's why I have Chris Brogan on the show today. He's the co-author of Trust Agents, Using the Web to Build Influence, Improve Reputation, and Earn Trust. 10th anniversary edition. It came out more than 10 years ago. And Chris, I want you to know that it is one of the books that I read and did try to emulate and build my personal brand on. We talked before going live. I've stumbled, you guys. I've made mistakes. I've been that guy on social media, but I'm trying to get better each and every day. And that's what Chris is going to share tips with all of us about how we can go about doing. Chris Brogan is also over at Chris Brogan. Chris, I know you hate this, but I'm almost done. Chris is over at chrisbrogan.com, and over at his site, Chris shares valuable tools to help you create and deliver better business branding, messaging, and communications, especially in this at a distance world. And that's what we're going to chat about today. Chris, it's good to see you.
Mitch, always good to connect up with you. It's been a minute since we've done it in person. I haven't been in San Diego near you in the halls of the social media marketing world in a while.
It's interesting, though. I miss seeing you, but I also feel like I see you every day because I am actually watching your daily show. I think it's called The Backpack Show, where each morning, now it's early my time. I'm on the West Coast, you're on the East Coast. But you've got a show where you're walking your talk when it comes to being a trust agent. Why don't we just start with that? Tell us a little bit about this new daily show.
So the Backpack Show is the third or fourth iteration of doing a live video show on weekdays. And what's kind of funny is, hey, Nancy, what's kind of funny about it is as it has gone and moved itself forward a little bit each time, something different will happen. You mentioned the fact that 7 a.m. on the West Coast. My mom and dad, who are in Vegas, said to me one day when I just didn't show up exactly at 7 a.m., they said, we wake up early for this show. Like, we're not super anxious to get up at 7 a.m., but we love our son and we want to show up. You better be there because, it makes us grumpy when you say, oh, I don't think I will today. And I was like, oh, my gosh, they're totally right. And so I committed to doing it weekdays every time at the same time. And I go exactly live on the minute. Well, so we wrote a book called Trust Agents because what we all know is that being trustworthy in person, we get that. It doesn't not make sense. If you and I are going to meet for lunch and you're 38 minutes late for lunch, I'm feeling stabby, right? But we don't treat the internet that way. We don't treat anything where there's a digital space between us that way. And the book's idea, the premise of the book was you've got to learn how to be a human being at a distance, because that's what we said this in 2009. And then we had to rewrite it in 2019 to say, or 2020, I guess it came out 2 weeks ago, to say, look, guys, the online world is the same as the real world, only there's a keyboard and a screen between us right now.
I'm glad you guys came out with a revised 10th edition of the book because it is spot on. I told Chris before we went live, I just finished it last night and it's current, it's updated, it is killer stuff, Chris. And look, I've been online since 1996, first website, right? Not, as active as you, but I got to tell you guys something. I started listening to the updated book this week while running. I finished it last night on my Kindle. It's awesome, Chris. You guys did such a great job of keeping it updated and sharing so many amazing stories. I want to lift the hood of the social media vehicle and dive deep. But before we do that, let's take a step back. And generally speaking, when it comes to being a trust agent on social media, I know you shared 6 characteristics or 6 different traits of being a trust agent. Can I twist your arm to kind of walk us through all 6, or at least the traits that you feel are important with establishing ourselves as trust agents?
All right, so I got to remember them all. So you have to help me if I stumble, okay? So number 1, make your own game.
Let's start there.
This is the first easy one, right? So it's people say to me, "How did you become the guy way back in the day?" And I said, "Well, because no one else was the guy. Like I made up my space. Hey, Tim, I made up my space. And then I said, hey, this is this thing I'm doing." And then companies were starting to like, "Oh, should I know about that?" And, you know, as grownups do, they start looking over what the weird guy's doing. They're like, does that even mean anything to my business? So my meetings, name drops incoming. Suddenly, Sony, Google, Microsoft, Coke, Pepsi, Titleist, Comcast, Disney, everybody's bringing me in. And all they're asking is the same variation of the same question. What should we be doing here? What should happen? I'm with the chairman of General Motors, who I shouldn't be with. If every job, this is right before they had to declare bankruptcy, every job lost at GM is 10 other jobs lost in the economy. That's how important it is to the world. And this man is saying, look, I think Twitter's silly. I get it, but, you know, whatever. I don't like it. I know there's blogs. We have blogs. We got all that. I get all of it. Why does my CFO say I'm not doing well and my CMO say we're doing well? And we said, well, let's just go to Twitter. Search.twitter.com. Chevy sucks. GM sucks. And you see all of that. And he goes, my CMO doesn't talk about that. I go, I know. He's incented to say how great it's going. You pay that person, he or she, to say, this is great. Your CFO says, where's my money, Fritz? Right? So number one, always listen to the CFO. Number 2, hey, free. You can search Twitter all by yourself at your laptop whenever you want and look at that. So make your own game was just telling these stories to really big companies and being the first guy doing it. Then everybody was doing it. Then there was a social media industry. So I ran away because I don't want to be part of an industry. So that was that. So that's make your own game.
And can I ask you a question about make your own game? Maybe we can break this down while we're talking about it. One of the things, you know, Chris, I have a lot of lawyers that are in my communities, and I talk to them about being unique and different, and just being different than that other lawyer across the street. Make their own game. In your book, you talk about closed and open games, and I know you enjoy gaming, and my son Garrett loves gaming. When you say make your own game, is that where you do talk about open and closed gaming and that type of concept, or does that fall under a different trait?
Well, let's say yes and, which is the way that, you know, improv people like to say. So yes, in that way, and also in that way that the trick to figuring out where you could do something interesting is within adding or removing constraints, right? So it turns out that the American restaurant industry, pay attention with me for a minute, lawyers, a lot of them pre-COVID were failing because what happened was they were trying to be everything to everyone. And the people who were winning, except for New York delis, Chinese restaurants, and the Cheesecake Factory, no one knows why. I'm not saying they're mob owned, but the ones who were winning were restaurants who had one page. So like Five Guys, would you like a burger or a burger with cheese? Shake or soda pop? Some fries or curly fries? That's all you get, right? I ran out of fingers, right? And so that's who won. So their constraint was super small menu, and that was working in the restaurant industry. In law, the minute you try to be a lawyer for everybody, the minute you're not. In law, the minute you're doing the same as everybody else, you're not really winning, right? You suddenly I'm billable hour shopping, right? But if you said, you know, I've got a package, I know you're getting ready to get divorced, and I know you got a lot of questions, and I know you don't really want my one-on-one hour time right now. I've got a little video package, and it doesn't cost as much as my hour time does because real live synchronous time costs that much. Here's the thing. Click this link, buy it, watch it, and then come to me with your real questions. You're going to love it, right? If you're doing that and your teammates aren't, your partners aren't, your competing down the street guy isn't, that's your own game. You just won it.
I love what you just said, Chris, about there are certain rules and regulations and procedures we have to follow. For example, in a divorce case, like you just mentioned, to use that topic. But I think over the last 6 months with Zoom, those lawyers that have embraced live video technology, doing things at the last minute without all of the time that we normally have to get prepared, because people want We want to talk to you right now. So you got to be ready to go, right? Being comfortable in a shirt like this instead of putting on a suit, that's playing the game, but playing by your own rules. And I'm guessing what you're saying. And I think you guys, those are some of the things that I learned in trust agents that I've used over the years is to give myself permission to be a human being and be myself, which is something that Chris is very good at doing. Listen, you guys, we're talking with Chris Brogan of chrisbrogan.com, co-author of Trust Agents, 10th anniversary. Share your questions, share your comments. Chris, I've got questions coming in over on my right side of the panel. They're not all here on StreamYard. We got some on Periscope and Twitter. And if you guys could share this out, that would be fantastic. Rules of the game. There are some basic rules of the game under this first category that you talked about in the book. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but what Chris talked about was when you treat people well, they'll treat you well. The wider your network, the easier it is to get things done. And that's what I want to focus on. And the more personal the relationships, the more straightforward you can be. Those are Chris's words and Julian's words, not mine. Let's talk about this network, Chris. The wider the network, the easier it is to get things done. Why is that the case? Why are we still focusing on quality and not quantity, or is it a combination of all the above?
It's always a both. It's always a both because, just knowing people to say you know them doesn't help anybody. And also there's another whole part of this where we call it the 150. Hey, Bella, there's this whole thing called, Dunbar's number, which means that we can only have 150 meaningful relationships at any time. It's kind of a restriction of being us. And what we said was, what if you made yourself part of 150 different kinds of circles? Lawyers hang out with lawyers. Well, what the hell good is that? Like, what they're going to hand you their extra business? Almost never, right? There's those rare times when that happens, right? Speakers,
and it's stressful. And it's
really stressful. And what are you going to
do?
You're going to kibitz about the stuff. Oh, I had this case, and boy, that judge wasn't listening. And then you poop on the judge for a while, and nothing comes of that. There's really no value there. But lawyers who hang out with MMA fighters might be cooler. Mm-hmm. Why? Well, because I bet they need lawyers a lot more often than an average human does, right? Because they get a lot of people rushing up on them to prove that they're tougher than the fighter, and they get put into a lot of unprovoked fights, and they have to document and step through what they did or didn't do. So if you're a friend with a bunch of MMA people, you suddenly have a way better team of people you can connect with. But now it's so vital to suck in this next part, my lawyer friends. Bear in mind that you are not sitting around going, and how do I benefit from this? Because that is, I'm trying to think of a really useful analogy for this, but basically it just doesn't pay off, right? It's like trying to tickle yourself. It doesn't work. So if you walk around saying, man, be really beneficial to me to have friends in this world, nothing good comes of it. But if you make friends wherever you go and you just kind of keep the friends, see, there's a difference, hey, good to meet you. Good to know you. That's pretty interesting. You have a taco truck. I like tacos. And, that person comes and goes in your life because for whatever reason, you don't need to know a person who runs a taco truck. That person's dad, runs GM or something. Might be good to know that taco truck guy. The other thing to do is when you come across some particularly advantageous network, all you should ever be thinking is, how can I enrich their connection? Who do they need to know that they don't know? The world is shut down for professional speakers. Happy quarantine, everybody. We don't go anywhere. We don't get to fly. We get to sit in our house, and we get to sometimes do virtual events, sometimes for money. And I got a message the other day from a nice lady for an event in Dubai for Prince from Dubai, and a really cool media academy going on over there that's cooler than anything I see in the States, and for money. And as I say yes, and as I'm kind of prepping for the event, I message her and I say, do you have any need for any of my other weirdo speaking friends? Do you need introductions to anybody? Are you looking for more gigs to fill? Do I need to introduce you to other kinds of potential clients? As it happens, I'm connected to the U.S. ambassador for the United Arab Emirates. Is that a good connection? All I'm doing is opening everything I have to that person with zero want in mind. The law of reciprocity takes care of that for you, but the law of reciprocity meets up with the law of karma in the back room if you're a jerk about it, and it will poison and punish you every time you try to do this for your own gain only.
It sounds to me like you're also referencing somewhat that agent zero approach that you talked about in your book. Why don't we expand a little bit about that, being a trust agent and agent zero?
So people who read Trust Agents either the first time or the 10th anniversary time will realize that we stole as much as we could from David Maister and Charlie Green, the Trusted Advisor, which, by the way, almost every lawyer's read the Trusted Advisor. None of them have read Trust Agents. It's the same book with two different guys. It's okay. I've got the beard, so I could be Charlie Green, and, you know, Maister has dark hair, Julian has dark hair. It's perfect. So Agent Zero is the idea that if you're, this is not the right time to think about this because of a coronavirus, but Patient Zero, right? Agent Zero is at the crux of a lot of activity, right? So we said, if you could be the elbow of every deal, and by elbow, I mean, Mitch, come over here. I got to have you meet this person. I get nothing out of it. The introduction is all I did. Well, you know who gets invited a lot of places? The person who brought you business. So to be at all of the different places you can be, hi, Brad, to be at all the places you can be and to really just repeatedly give as much as you humanly can give to other people, not overly and not in weird ways. And again, never with the expectation of reciprocity, that stacks some kind of cosmic energy. And I can't refute it. You know what I mean? I can tell you that there's a lot of things that are empirical that we can just measure and count. There's no ROI number, but all I know is that way past my time that I should have long left the stage, I still get invited places because I brought a lot of people their gigs. I taught in a lot of classrooms for free. I did all these things as often as I could because I just thought it might be the nice thing to do. And unlike Quaker Oats, where he says it's the right thing to do, it turns out that you get a lot of benefits down the road for it.
I wanted to have Chris on, especially for the lawyers watching, because what he just shared is a big opportunity that we have as lawyers. Chris, I don't know if you know this, but we're the firm in town where we'll get calls. Mitch, who did you hire to have your house painted? Do you know a good plumber? Okay, who's doing your landscaping? In other words, they trust what our thoughts on just everyday services. And what you and Julian have done in this book is you've taken that Agent Zero approach and brought it onto social media, and you're showing people how to position themselves to be that Agent Zero trust agent to help people and to give and to add value to other people's lives. And I know in our profession, once lawyers figure that out and get that, it helps position themselves, to hopefully be somebody that's known, liked, and trust on social media that people can reach out to if they have any kind of question. And we're talking with Chris Brogan, author of Trust Agents, and we're going over the 6 characteristics, you guys, of being a trust agent. Number 1, Chris talked about making your own game. Number 2, being one of us. And I think you kind of touched upon that a little bit. Number 3, though, the Archimedes Effect. How does the Archimedes Effect tie into what we've just been talking about? Because I know it does.
So one of my favorite things about this chapter was when Julian Smith, who wrote most of that chapter, when Julian wrote that chapter, I didn't get it. I was like, well, he's a co-author. I'll just go along for the ride. And I added a few paragraphs and I didn't understand what he was talking about. I mean, I get Archimedes, give me a lever long enough, I can move the world. I get what he was saying. But what it was purely about was leverage. And it was leverage in the most positive sense of the word, not especially, for you folk, trial leverage is very different. If you say this, we're going to do this to you, not that leverage. More like if you make a video like this, Mitch coming on and streaming and interviewing me says to a bunch of legal professionals, Mitch has quite a Rolodex of people that are willing to come on at a moment's notice and be part of this community, which says a lot about Mitch's opportunities and his abilities.
So let's be honest right now, Chris. I am here because you were able to squeeze me into your schedule. Let's get that straight right now. But I appreciate you saying that.
Well, thank you. And thank you. But that's how that works, right?
Yeah.
It works, when you reach out to somebody and say, hey, do you have a minute? Can you come jump on the show? I need somebody tomorrow. I say yes. Why do I say yes? Because Mitch has done it the reverse. Mitch has done it many times in the reverse. Mitch has given those things. So this whole Archimedes effect, this whole leverage thing, you can get so much more out of life the more times you put your resources forth first. The more times that it really connects with the Agent Zero thing, and it connects with one of us, and you'll see that all the way through. The best negative rating I ever got on Amazon said, this book's a lot like How to Win Friends and Influence People. And And I was like, yes,
Yeah, exactly.
thank you. Now can you tell me I look kind of like Hugh Jackman? Like I would hate to hear that. So it was very interesting. But that's my point. And so what Julian said, though, Julian's point was, and he used a really interesting example too. If you tell a joke and one person hears the joke, that's fine. If you tell a joke and 10 million people hear the joke, it's almost better. So weirdly, like the scarcity of physical things is juxtaposed with the abundance of when more and more people have access to something. There's a term called the network effect, which means if you and I are the only two people with walkie-talkies, it gets boring really fast. If 16 guys in the neighborhood had walkie-talkies, we could all communicate, it's fun, right? And that's, network effect works with things like new platforms that are coming online. There's always some new thing that you're waiting for. You're at a fake digital velvet rope waiting for your invite, just like everyone else. I got invited one the other day and I was like so excited, and it was iPhone, and I am an Android guy, so not me, back of the line. So that's the thing. But so with that leverage chapter, it's really all about how can you make video assets, for instance? How can you make a podcast? How can you make anything where, like I was just saying about the non-billable hour thing. Hey, I got a little divorce thing. You can do that, and that one-to-many opportunity makes it so that you can leverage it many more times. One of the only investments that can sometimes just retain and store value better than anything else, including real estate, are digital assets. If you have intellectual property is gold. And so one of the things I've been doing for however many years is trying to show other people how you could do that. Sell your brains. Selling your brains is one of the most powerful things you could do to stop being a shark swimming. When we're shark swimming, we only get paid if we're around. And if we stop breathing and stop swimming, we don't get our air, so we die. Well, you got to get out of that, right? Sharks don't really have a great nap time. They kind of have to coast along to breathe, so they don't sleep very well.
Plus, I'd rather be on the beach, in the sand, reading a good book on my Kindle and watching the fins go by in the water. In other words, I want to pick and choose where I am and what I'm doing. And one of the things, Chris, that I thought on this chapter and this concept is, for example, what we're doing right now. Lawyers out there, business owners out there, you can take this type of content and you can repurpose it in dozens and dozens of different ways and use systems. Chris, I don't know if you're using TryLately, trylately.com, but it's something that we've been using lately. I'm a brand ambassador for the program, but I'll take this video, Chris, and click a couple of buttons and it'll create 75 to 125 different video clips or audio clips or blog posts automatically. It gets us to third base, and then we go in and tweak it to bring it across home plate. And it's one of those things where it allows you to leverage your time. It allows you to leverage using technology, like Chris is talking about, your information, your message, your answers, your brand. And at the same time, the newer technology, I think, allows you to do so in a way where you're not being that guy, right? Being that company on social media. And why don't we combine that conversation with the fifth element of being a trust agent? Number one, make your own game. Number two, you want to be one of the group in your community the right way. Number three, the Archimedes Effect. Number four, Agent Zero. Number five, being a human artist. In other words, doing what we're talking about. And I like to think of practicing law, Chris, as actually, I'm an artist more than a businessman. Every case is different. I actually look at it that way, right? And I'm trying to get more lawyers to think that way because it makes it more fun, and I think you get better results. But talk to us a little bit about being a human artist while you're a trust agent. And before you answer that question, when you guys wrote the book in 2009, what were the main platforms out there? What platforms were we? YouTube?
YouTube
Twitter?
Was barely as used and utilized as it is today, but it still was, there, but it was not where it is now. Twitter, but people still weren't taking it seriously. In 2009, we were like, there's some magic here. And years later, you cannot watch a news show. Hi, Jesse. You can't watch a news show or a political show or a sports show where they don't show tweets in the background, to the point you're like, I also have Twitter. Like, I don't need to see the tweet that somebody said. Right. Like, I can see it. And so that's weird. And that's what's happened. There's Brian, speaking of human. And so one of the things that we, Twitter, Facebook, I don't even know if we mentioned Instagram. Like, I don't think that was on the horizon. So, but By the way,
TikTok.
TikTok was not there. We and I don't think we said a nice thing about it in 2019's one or 2020's one. One thing that we regret is things that looked so stellar brand new in 2009, 3 years later didn't look that great. You know, when we did a revised edition, we changed a few, but they didn't really want us to do much. So like 2011 or so, we gently revised. When we came back to write the 10th anniversary, Julian and I said more swear words in private messages to each other than we did in our real lives because of having to pull out stuff that was just so dated. And I was like, oh, this is the worst. And like, we would send each other URLs that we had printed in the book. And we're like, oh, we're talking about Dig. Nobody knows what Dig is anymore. But back then it was the thing. And we were like, this is the stupidest book. Why did we say we wanted to do a 10th anniversary? And now it's updated. And of course, 8 months from now, it'll not make any sense anymore.
Disagree. It's brilliantly written, and it's actually timeless. The concepts in your book, Chris, are timeless. It's what we've been doing before the internet that's worked, and it's what is applicable today, everybody. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but so as human artists, Chris, what you're saying is don't be afraid to paint do that painting, create that painting, but sometimes that painting is not going to be around in a year or two, and that's okay.
Well, so the human artist thing is marginally different. Human artist is, by the way, that's, Julian's chapter is Archimedes. Human artist is mine. Julian hates that chapter the way I hate Archimedes. Like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
He wouldn't say he hates it, but he hates it. Human artist is basically, how do you do the best at really connecting with humans in a very human way? How do you not walk around on your back foot? How do you not wonder? There's people that when they interact with other humans, every sentence they hear, they're thinking, what did he mean by that? What did he mean by that? Because of things in their lives and what's happened. Like, it's a thing. Human artist is learning about the artistry of interacting in a very human, positive, personable way. Nancy Merlin came on. She left a comment. She said, Chris Brogan, beloved by many, or something like that, right? So why Nancy says that is Nancy says that because every time I see her, my face lights up and I hug her and I say hi. And I'm so excited to see her. And I'm supposed to be Chris Brogan, but I see and remember. By the way, the bar for this is ridiculous, Mitch. If you remember someone's name twice, they think, oh my gosh, Chris Brogan knows my name. That is the lowest bar of entry in the human race. Like someone's name.
But it's huge.
It is. And I want to give you one. This will sound critical, but it's something I learned in 2005. 2005, I got to watch. It was right before I launched PodCamp, which was 2006 with Christopher Penn. We went to a podcast event where we were kind of made to feel bad a few different times. Like they just kept saying things like, we're elite and you're not, and we're sitting like I paid to be here. Oh, thanks, good to know. It was like the real 2005 is the early days. 2004 was when podcasting was invented. This is the year after. And these people are like, we're wizards. And this guy, Tony Khan, was a 30-year veteran of public radio. And podcasting and public radio really come from a lot of the same cloth. And so Tony Khan said this, and I'm handing it to you. Tony Khan says, everything I deliver to my video or audio or anything, I say it as I'm saying it to one beloved person. He says, I never say you guys ever. Always you. I'm always saying it to one person because there's only one person in each seat. Even if there's 10,000 people, there's only one person hearing it. There's only one person where it's in their earbud. And so I say you, never you guys. And he said that in 2005, and I was like, damn. And then I haven't said you guys except for by mistake, or if a lot of people make fun of me at the same time. All right, you guys, I get it. But never after that. So when I address the community that I have the pleasure to serve, listen to that phrase for a minute. When I address that community that I have pleasure to serve, I say you, because I need them to know. I mean, Nancy, I mean, Brian, I mean, each person that came one at a time, kind of like Romper Room, if you remember that show.
You do, look, Chris, you do it so well. The way you write your blog, the way you write your email newsletters, I feel like you're writing to me. Okay. And I think, that's obviously what you're saying. If people want to connect with you at your blog or get on your newsletter list, what's the best way for them to do that while we're talking about it?
Both at the same time. Go to chrisbrogan.com/NL for newsletter and grab it. Okay. One, you can decide if Mitch is making, a joke or not. and he's not. And two, my newsletter is unique that it doesn't come from do not reply at please God don't ever write back to me.com. It comes from an email address that you can hit reply and talk to me. So hit reply and see if I write you back. The answer is yes, unless you ask me for something, and then no.
Yeah, you do reply, and I've always appreciated that. You know, it's interesting when we're picking a jury during jury selection of voir dire, remembering the jurors' names is such great social currency in the courtroom. And there's a way you can do that. And taking that approach online, those soft skills, those human interaction skills are so valuable when we're online. And I think that's what you're talking about. In my book, Chris, which you were kind enough, and thank you for sharing a chapter on blogging for professionals. I had Bob Berg start the book off and thank you, Bob, for doing that, because it's all about being a go-giver on social media. What better way to start, a book off where you have contributing experts like Chris and other experts around the world to have the go-giver start the book off. And I think that's what you're talking about. And doing that is super important. But what about the sixth element of being a trust agent? And that is building an army. In other words, as we're developing our teams, as we're developing our communities, if they're sharing our content, if they're reflecting our personalities, how can we teach and or get them through leadership skills to do the same thing?
So this chapter, Build an Army, is a reskin of something that I was told a long time ago by a preacher friend. And my preacher friend, John, said, Jesus had disciples. And I said, well, first off, I can't even start a next sentence because I'm not Jesus. Turns out, I couldn't even yell, let he without sin cast the first stone. I'm that bad. But so, Magdalene's my favorite person in the Bible. That tells you how I am with that. So the thing he was saying was you've got to kind of grow up a bunch of people around you. Now, build an army means that first off, I never ever thought I was that amazing. But even at my most amazing guestness, I always ever only spend my time with the up and coming people who are looking to figure out how I got to where I got. I never kissed the butt. I never developed a taste for it. It was never that interesting. The people I love are the people I love. If they're famous, that's fine. But the people I spend my most time with at events, to the point that my professional peers said, Chris, you really do need to schedule some time with your other friends because you only hang out with the people that are just meeting you for the first time. And I was like, oh, you're kind of right. Like, I feel like a jerk that I don't hang out with like John Chance from Duct Tape Marketing and some of my other pals. They said, don't do that. But I think if you spend your time connecting with smart, up and coming, growing people, well, guess who grows into the biggest person at some company? Guess who grows into the person who suddenly has all the authority in the world to do something really cool? Those people. And I think that the more voices we get, the more opportunity we get to share our spotlight, which is the other reason I do the backpack show. My guests are almost always reasonably unknown to the people right there, but have some other kind of community somewhere else. And so my goal is to earn them a new group of eyes that have never seen them. And they never leave the backpack by putting an idea in it. They leave the backpack by also earning a whole new group of people who love them as much as other people love them.
I love that so much. And people don't like to be told how to do something or what to do. At least the people I hang out with, we all kind of do our own thing. And that's why we do our own thing. But to take that one more step when we're building an army or a community of like-minded individuals that share similar ideas, principles, ethics, enjoy a product or service. What are 2 or 3 things we can do as leaders for someone new coming into our space to take them by the hand and show them the right way to do the things that we're talking about? Obviously, give them a book, give them the book Trust Agents.
Sure.
This book is going to save you from making a lot of mistakes like Mitch Jackson has, right? I get that. But in addition to just giving them the book, what are some other thoughts or philosophies or approaches that you would share from a leadership perspective?
So in January of 2020, I launched a new project called Story Leader. It was also the first time I applied for a trademark. Wow, do you learn a lot?
Seriously,
really fast
seriously.
When you do something. Yeah. And I've never, I don't, you can have all the other things I've ever said for words. Wiley owns Trust Agents, so you can't do anything without them, meaning they own that phrasing on their book title. I guess I have rights, something lawyer. But the reason I trademarked story leader was because I believe with all my soul that one of the missing elements of leadership right now is that really good leaders use stories to do the heavy lifting. We can remember numbers a bit, but using numbers and using kind of lists and facts to lead is a lot like sort of trying to eat soup with a pencil. There's probably a little bit of soup in your mouth, but it takes a while to get there. But if I tell you stories, or if you even listen to Mitch and I talking, and I told a lot of stories, story is our basic unit of memory, right? And so I think that leaders need to understand that story doesn't just come natural. Story is not built into every human. There are people who are born storytellers, and we've all met them. We've all met them no matter what walk of life they're in. They could be shining our shoes. They could be cutting our hair. They could be, a judge on a bench, one that you like, not the ones that you have to listen to anyway. And you might want them to tell every story that ever was. I'll tell you one guy, he just came out of my head for the weirdest reason. And I know, you have such a distinguished group of people that I almost always try to censor. But I had a friend named Bill Limbacher when I worked at the phone company at a wireless telecom. He was an old phone company guy, 30 years experience in the phone company, comes to work at this wireless telecom where I'm working. And I guess we just both had weak bladders. So we would end up at the urinals a lot. And that is important because Limbacher never came to the urinal without some story. And by the way, I am one of those shy peers. I don't want you to talk to me in the bathroom. I don't want you to know I'm there. I want to get in, do my thing, wash my hands, get out. I don't want to talk to you until we're out there. But
he had a captive audience.
Limbacher talked to me every day in that toilet. And I'm telling you, terrible bladder. Or this is more creepy to imagine. He's like waiting at his desk. There goes Brogan. And then he ran in. I don't want to admit that one. But he would tell me stories. I would laugh every single time. I'd laugh so hard. I think he liked the idea that I was making it harder for the cleaning crew. I think that's what's true. And so he would tell stories. And so story leader. But here's the thing. People are going to remember that part, Mitch, more than anything intelligent you and I said. But that's the thing. So with story leader, what I do is I kind of systematically have been trying to teach people, how do you use business storytelling? There's 3 different types of stories: mission stories, belonging stories, and growth stories. When do you use which one? And when I do that, I think, beyond trust agents, which is how do you just be trustworthy? How do you do the things you're supposed to do normally in business, except at a distance? I think that the way the world has changed, our attention span is so minuscule that we have to learn how to be more succinct, how to be much more direct to our point. Oration, for example, an important part of doing a case. Mm-hmm. Right now in this new world, you almost have to start with, and that's why I think he's innocent. And then you go back, start the story there, because that wait for the reveal thing that they do so well in law drama on TV. No human is set up for that right now. We're so fried. We're so frazzled. We're punch drunk from information that you really have to start with, here's the thing. All right, now I'll talk to you about the thing. Here's the thing again. Now here's what I want you to do now that I've given you the thing. You have to put labels, like little Post-its, all over your storytelling now and your information delivery. And I think that's the one big thing people need to learn beyond maybe reading that weird book.
I think communication and storytelling is the most important business asset that we can have. And your book opens up doors to allow those relationships and connections to do that. Earlier, you didn't really drop a name, and I'm not either. But a few years ago, I was on a show with Gary Vaynerchuk, who you wrote about in your book, and we were talking about communication. And it's hard to get Gary to stop talking and go like, whoa, right? But what I was talking to him about was, because of Twitter and because of instant communication and what millennials are looking for right now, I have changed my entire approach to opening statement from 2 hours to about 20 minutes, to about a TED Talk. And I'm speaking in short, concise, to the point sentences that are relevant, pertinent, and emotionally charged, but also in a way that gives my jury permission to take that next step. I don't just want to entertain them with a story. I want to empower them to do what they have to do when they leave and go back into the jury deliberation room. I get it. And I hope everybody that's watching understands the power of communication, the power of story. So, Chris, I'm glad you brought up this new project that you started at the beginning of the year, because if I have a case, anybody watching, if we have a new product, a new service, maybe a new company that we're rolling out right now, despite COVID-19, and we're trying to figure out the story to tell or the approach to connect with our audience, is that part of the service that you're offering?
That's the application. That is absolutely the application. Because what I feel is that, well, so again, I said that leaders have a really tough time telling their story. That's internally, right? But marketing is externally doing the same thing. Marketing is, we're starting now already to see the commercials come out where there's people with masks in the background. And we're starting to see these commercials where suddenly every piece of clip art we have is a person of color. Also important, but you've got to go beyond clip art. So what do we do? How do we grab it? How do we do things? I mean, you work in law, so you are connected with a lot of law enforcement. This is an interesting time right now for these stories, right? So how do you navigate that? So there's all these things where there are ways through that maybe people haven't looked at. There are ways to kind of get after what's the most important part. And that's the other thing too is, and Mitch, you're a pro at sort of, if you need to say the thing you need to say, you're ready to bring it. I mean, that's what law is. Trial law is making sure someone leaves, that jury person goes home in their bed, remembering the sentence you needed them to remember, or everybody's money was just wasted and someone's life is going to be dramatically changed if they don't remember. Well, guess what? Most all humans who don't practice law, especially trial, don't have that skill. And they mumble and mutter and say, and they sort of sketch pad what they're trying to say to people. And that's a challenge that needs to be, we have to be 100% elevator pitch all the time. We have to be tweet all the time. And so people bemoan that, oh, gone is the time where we could actually just dig into something. You know who wants to dig into things? Nobody. Yeah. Nobody does. You know what's happened in this time of woe? Nobody's reading books. They're all binging television. Why? Because it's fast. They're all Netflix nation. Netflix and YouTube both had to promise to de-res so that they wouldn't destroy the internet with all the people viewing. This is true. And the reason is because we're so fried. And so if you're the one bemoaning long oration, you're also the one not getting your business. And I can't help you with that. But if you want to be heard, seen, understood, take something away, have the person remember what you said and not just how they felt, that's me.
Let's talk just briefly in the last 15 minutes or so, Chris, the power of metaphor. A mutual friend of ours, Ann Miller, the night before my closing argument, gave me a metaphor that what the defendants were doing was playing Russian roulette with my client's son's life. And after the case came back, that's what the jurors remembered for a week during deliberation, playing Russian roulette, spinning the chamber, right? I did the whole thing during my closing argument. That was Ann's idea. I know you have a phrase about what you call metaphors, and why do you like metaphors so much? And how can we incorporate metaphors into our stories? And what's your term for metaphors? So you had another term for it.
I don't know.
It was something like hip.
Oh, now I don't know anything. I'll get to that, or you'll get to that. You'll find it.
Okay, I'll find it.
And apologize for that little distraction, is that I was made the offer of food delivery, and who says no to food? But as I'm realizing there's a stream happening, and so I don't want thump, thump, thump and all that. So
it's okay. No big deal. We're being real.
We're very real. Oh my gosh, you poor people having to watch me right now. There's nothing but this. I am always the same. I made a poop joke on stage and got American Standard Toilets as a client. So that'll tell you how that goes. Metaphor works because we remember it, and especially if we can associate with it. So I talked about story being important. Story is vital. I did a tweet where I said, getting your story straight, not straight in the law way, getting your story straight and like in your head is super vital. And this guy came back at me and he said, no, participating with someone else's story with your story is vital. And I went, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. You're totally right. And what he meant was this, If it's my birthday and I get all the birthday presents and I don't even have little fake presents for your dumb kids, and I'm just playing with my toys and I'm not even letting you play with my toys, that's the worst birthday party ever. We've all been a kid at that birthday party where it was like, oh man, I'm sick of that kid, I'm going home, right? We've all been that kid. We've probably all been the selfish kid that didn't want anyone to touch his toys either, which, by the way, what a weird time to try to teach people giving stuff is when you're getting it. Anyway, that's not for now.
Yeah, that'll be the next show.
Look at that, and look at that story right there. So if I said to you that the best way to be a storyteller is to always hand half of the melon over to the other person, the hand gesture, you said like Russian roulette, you spun the chamber. The visual of that for anybody who's not seeing impaired, spun the chamber. Here's another me being crass thing. When I do my live shows, there's a cat in my house that's here and I don't like it. It's only here because my ex-wife has 3 and this one gets bullied. So I've got the cat for quarantine. And this cat comes right up on my body every single live show I do and presents her anus to the camera for everybody. This is a cat's version of FU. It is the middle finger of cats. So when I tell that story normally, here's how I say it. I say, and she presents her anus. When I do that, whoosh, the emotional amplification goes up higher. You're like, oh my gosh, you just said anus, right? So with metaphor, it's the same sort of thing. If I can bridge, so somebody maybe hasn't been in the situation that your client was in, but that Russian roulette, we've seen movies. We think maybe, however old we are, we saw The Deer Hunter. We've seen it in video games, whatever we've seen it in. Our brain locks. And so stories and language are software, period. Stories are software. Words are software. So if I say to you, fresh, like, oh, this food was so fresh, I don't have to say any other words. You put it in your head. You probably think cucumbers and lettuce or something like that. No one says chili is fresh. Oh, I had some fresh chili the other day, right? So a word has extractions, that we take with it. So a metaphor is just doubling up on that. So if I say, I'm like a guy in a horse costume, you put this together and you bring the things we don't say or illustrate are the things that stick in our head more because we had to finish them. The reason they say, and they're not 1,000,000% sure, they being science, the way songs get stuck in our head is if as we're listening to a song or thinking of a song, if we get cut off in the middle of thinking about that song sticks in our head for a lot longer. So if I'm like, I'm thinking up good.
Vibrations.
Mitch, later on, you can text me and say, curse you, Brogan. Yeah. Because be in your dumb head. And that's how metaphors work. Metaphors stick in your head. I have a phrase I used to say all the time, give your ideas handles.
That's what I was thinking of.
Is that what you were thinking of?
Yeah, okay. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Give your ideas handles is so simple to think about, which means make the idea their idea so they can take it away. Make the idea. And see how I did I'm holding a suitcase, right?
Yes, I do. You want me to, can I turn it back on you real quick? No. Just as an example. And by the way, everybody, it's, all right. So Chris, if we're trying to talk about fresh, right?
Yeah.
I might come back and say, Chris, what's your favorite food? What is that you enjoy eating more than anything else, especially on a day like today?
Leftovers
at the house or when you're a guest at someone else's house?
Well, funny you should say that because I always tell people that when they reshare their social so much, it's like inviting people to the house to eat leftovers. But my absolute favorite was leftovers growing up. My grandmother, you know how every grandmother wants to make your favorite food if you're lucky and have a nice family? My grandmother would make like a dish of lasagna and call it a leftover. And I never was cued to the fact that there were not a single cut out of it.
And so, did she serve that to you hot or cold out of the fridge?
It was in the fridge. She'd say, oh, you want some leftovers? And I would go and look in the fridge and there'd be like 3 or 4 meals that she had specially baked to be leftovers.
How did that make you feel when you looked in the fridge? Was it exciting?
It was like the best. It was like if you said my favorite food is steak and I'm like, oh, if I got you, this one's been aged for so long and whatever. It was, it used to belong to Kobe Bryant first. I don't know, whatever you say that makes a steak exciting. And we grill it. You're so excited. That's how I felt just in a cold fridge. So there's a point there too, by the way, Mitch. We always think that the help we want to offer or the thing we want to give or the whatever we want to do is what the other person wants. The human artist thing is making sure that we do what we think that other person wants. And that's where it shows that there's a real value to what we gave. So that's it. But yeah, my favorite food's leftovers. It's a weird one to say.
Next time you're over on the West Coast, I want you to come by the house because my wife, Lisa, makes the best leftovers. And when you sit down at the kitchen table and share our leftovers with us, it's going to remind you of that feeling you had when you'd open up your grandmother's refrigerator door and look inside. That's the same smell and taste that you're going to experience with Lisa's cooking. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about is you 100%. Said, bring the other person into the story. Right. And I just absolutely love that. Let's wrap this up with a couple of quick concepts, and they're super important in the last 8 minutes. I'm going to let you start with whichever one you want to talk about, but it's not who you know. And these are in Chris's book, and that's why I want to get to these topics. It's not who you know, it's who knows you. That's one broad topic, Chris, that I think is super important. Life is what you make it. There are rules and there are hacks. Okay, I mean, these are two concepts that if you give yourself permission to run with either one of them, I think you can make major interesting things happen. Also, public discourse magnifies social capital. Why don't we just start with that? Public discourse magnifies social capital. What does that mean? And what can our takeaway be today with doing such?
So the big opportunities in all three of those. Let's start with in reverse order. Public discourse.
I didn't mean to dump all that on you, but
hang on one very quick second.
Chris, we can wrap up if you need to run.
No. I had just texted the exact same words to the human on the other side of the door 8 feet away, and he didn't read his text yet. So anyway. Public discourse, the opportunity to have interesting conversations in public, like the old days, like town squares and all that, now happens in a digital way. As we are recording this, today is Eid, or evidently tonight is Eid. So for the Muslim community, this is one of their biggest holidays. So I said, oh, I didn't even realize today was Eid. So I start my thinking. I said, wait, can I say happy Eid? Is that what you're supposed to say? And all my Muslim friends are helping correct me. And they're like, yeah, you can totally say that. Or Eid Mubarak and all that. And so having that conversation in public does a few things. It signifies that I have friends in lots of cultures, which is important for people to take away. You know, we should all have friends in lots of cultures. It asks the question, I don't know what to say, like a lot of people don't. Right? We're all going through times where we don't know what to say. You can ask, what do you think I should say? And then people will tell you maybe what you could say. I also got the corrections to know, that the way I was saying a happy Eid is fine to say. But, there's Passover, right? Passover is not happy Passover. Like, that's not the intention of that particular event. But, so you learn these things. And I think that we all benefit from knowing more and more about other cultures, even if we're not of that culture, even sometimes if we don't support the culture. How better to know the person that you want to argue against than to really know their perspective? They say that one of the most winning ways to win an argument is to deeply state the other person's argument so that they really hear it. They hear and nod their head and feel that you got their argument, and then you go from yours. And if you can do it in that way that transitions that warmth over to your point, that's how you win, they say. Now, I'm not good at winning arguments, so that's why I need you. So so there's that. Your other 2 points, one of them was
about hacking life. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I said, oh my gosh, I have to tell you this one. So I tweeted the other day, I'm just here to let you know that I've checked, and the bed police don't come over to your house if you don't make your bed. I've run a test and no one's coming.
Is that true? Okay.
Turns out, now, Mitch, I have not, since I accidentally made fun of John McCain, not since then have I had that much Twitter negativity directed at me in massive waves. Now, the John McCain thing, I made a mistake. I did not know he had been a longstanding prisoner of war. I had no idea that he had a lot of physical disabilities. And I made some kind of a joke about how he was raising his arms. And it was just a stupid throwaway joke. I was so mortified. I was so gutted. I was so embarrassed. Not since then, when I made a bed making comment, did I think I would have to get in a Twitter fight with people. And it was all because a lot of people said, that's not true. Making your bed's really important. I was like, to who? To who? If I'm a realtor, maybe. But like I will tell you, I'm 50, 32 years or more of my life, I have not made my bed and nothing has been different. They're like, there's that the guy said, in that book, that Navy captain, if you make your bed, you're already got one. You know who thinks that way? People who love checklists. You want to know an awesome hack? Throw your checklist in the trash. Don't do a to-do list. Just work on things that matter. Now, let me correct this, because there's a perfect time for a checklist. Things like, we're going to take off in this airplane. That's a great checklist. I've got to get ready for my trial. Did I bring all 61 things I always have to bring for my trial? Always have a checklist for that. Don't have a to-do list. A to-do list is something I've classified as noble masturbation. I did the thing on my to-do list. Feels good. Feels good, but it isn't sex. You know how you succeed in life? You have more sex and you have less noble masturbation. You do things that matter and less things that you think you're supposed to do. Now, there's a few you got to do. You got to do taxes or you get beat up. Okay, got it. Understood. I grudgingly go through the process, not because I'm anti-tax. I hate the process. I wish the process was easier. I wish they just said, Chris, every dollar, we're just going to take 36 cents out of it. Even if I don't like that number, I'm like, okay, I got it. Done. I don't like to fill 58 pages to figure out my taxes. Tells you everything about me right there in a nut, Mitch. Anyway, so to wrap that up, that's how I feel. So hacks have to be things that don't wreck the world, but they have to be things where you have to question, is this really what I need to be doing?
There are so many rules and regulations that we all have to follow in life. I think for me on social media, Chris, one of the things I like to do is kind of take a step back, take a deep breath, and just kind of enjoy the process. And one of the reasons David and I kind of connected was I loved the newsjacking part of it. I didn't have to plan ahead. Something happened and I could comment about it and share my 2 cents worth, right? And late last year, I came up, and you guys can Google this. I don't know if anyone else has come up with this term, but it's intentional spontaneity or concept. And the whole idea is to rely upon your 10,000 hours of experience from the day you were born through today, right? Relationships, arguments, issues, whatever it might be. And Chris, for me, it's circling back to trial lawyers in court. Leave your notes on counsel table. Give yourself permission to stand up in front of a jury and share your opening statement from the heart. You know the facts, you know the law, you know what you want to say. You might have some topics or checklists, but be intentionally spontaneous and rely upon your life experiences. For me on social, Chris, that's what's made it enjoyable. But guess what? That's also where I've screwed up. I've done the tweets like what you've talked about, and wrapping things up. And I don't want to wrap up on a negative. So just quickly, and then we can wrap up on a positive. When we screw up on social media, how do we fix it as fast as possible? How do we fix it?
So I stole this from restaurateuring. There's something called the 3 A's. You acknowledge, you apologize, and you act. Earlier today, I made a tweet about John McCain, not knowing what I came to learn thereafter. It was a terrible mistake. It was a horrible, not really smart joke. And I'm very sorry. Now, I'm sorry like the way every YouTuber in the world does it right now, but I am sorry. I have no intention of ever maligning a veteran of war, somebody who is a prisoner of war, all the things that he stood for. And nor should I even make fun of someone who has a physical disability. I didn't realize it was one. I would not have done. To try not to caveat too much, or it's not an apology. And then act. I'm going to take time before I hit send. I'm going to really think about, is this something that's going to add to the story here before I hit send? And I think that's better for all of us. I hope you'll accept my apology. That's it. That's what you do.
I love that. It's so easy to click and publish, click and send, that maybe we need to pause just a moment and think things through, right? Think about what just happened, reflect upon our options, and then select the best option based upon the circumstance. Chris, love the book. Originally, love the updated 10th edition of Trust Agents. It's fantastic. I recommend everybody go out and get this, especially in my community, you guys. Use this as your foundation to move forward on everything that Chris has talked about. Chris, for those people that are listening to the podcast version of today's live video, can you share with them the best way for them to get in touch with you? And once again, if you could circle back to your storytelling service that you've rolled out at the beginning of the year.
Sure. chrisbrogan.com/NL to look at the newsletter, and /storyleader to look at the Story Leader project.
Love that. Chris, thank you for your time. Thank you for your friendship. And thank you for all that you do as a trust agent on the social and digital platforms. I appreciate you. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mitch. Thanks for having me on.
My pleasure. Thanks everyone for joining us. Make it a masterpiece. Bye-bye.